y'all, welcome to another episode of Tomboi Talks. I'm K.Short, your host, and today I got the chance to talk to Jay, also known as Jennifer, and I met them in Tucson, Arizona. For those of you who don't know, Tucson is really the place where I brought this whole vision together. And during my time there, I had the opportunity to work with some tomboys and kind of figure out what the community needed. And when it came to Jay, I actually met them in the club because at that time I was like, yo, I need to meet tomboys where they're at. And there was only one queer club in Tucson. So I went there, I handed them a card and I was like, yo, hit me up. And of course their partner freaked out, what was that about? And I was like, chill, it's nothing crazy. But surprisingly, they actually hit me up and we had the chance to connect and we were able to meet up every so often as they visited me at my coffee shop. And we got to chat about things that were important. The thing that I appreciate about Jay is that they are an educator. As someone who wanted to be in the educational field and wanted to be a teacher for our community and to go back to my high school and be a teacher, I've always admired the work that they are doing because I know that it's hard work, but also they gave me insight as to what's going on with the youth today. As we all know, it's a little different than what we went through, but at the end of the day, they're doing the work, and I really appreciate that. So I reached out to Jay because I feel like they have insight into a different kind of community that we may not be exposed to, and that's the community of identifying as Two-Spirit. They went through some things to meet those requirements, and I had no idea what that looked like. So I thought that this person would be a great person to gain insight to that community and knowing how that identifier becomes a part of their daily living. I hope you all enjoy the episode.
I remember when you handed me a card at IBT.
No, at IBTs, yeah.
Yeah, and I was dancing with my girl, and then all of a sudden I was like, damn, I thought, okay, I think this person sees me that I'm probably really fucked up right now, handing me a taxi card. That's one. That's the first time. And then Yesenia, she's a little crazy. So she looked at me and then I looked at the card and then I showed her the card and then I looked at the card again and then I just put it in my wallet. But I thought it was so dope because it was chill. Chill at a bar and you were dancing and I saw you saw me, but you weren't checking me out.
Yeah.
But in a bad way or anything, or trying to hit on me. But then I was like, that's so cool, that you did that. And I was like, when I saw the card, I was like, all right, cool. And then I just hit you up. Did I text you? I text you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I remember texting you and whoa, what's up? What are you up to? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we met at the coffee shop. And then oh my God, you asked me a lot of questions. Yeah.
What was I asking you?
You were going off about this passion planner, and I was telling you, damn, I'm like, yo, I'm not organized at all. I was like, I need me one of those in my life. And then you're like, well, the reason why I reached out to you is because there's not a lot of us, and you're kind of like, well, how do you identify yourself? And I was like, oh, well, it took me a minute to remember, or not to remember, but to really claim it, and to really understand the way you feel all the time inside. It's different. It's different for everybody, and I think it comes with time, and I think it comes with experiences, and I think it also comes with understanding yourself. Because I know that society labels us very different ways, and a lot of ways are derogatory and to be less of human or just to be not liked. And then other folks, that are conscientious about their surroundings, understand specific things that society puts on us, and the folks that are of color, understand, and like people of color understand a little bit more of like um those types of labels, that they might put on us and that are not always positive,
Yeah. And I feel,
especially.
and I feel like that's like a big part of the Tomboy like mentorship program, of the Tomboy like curriculum. And that's the reason why I reached out to you and continue to want to work with you, right? Like creating a curriculum, because I know that you're an educator, and sometimes I think about like how and when did you and when did you start realizing and learning about your identities? When did you start becoming more conscious of how the world viewed you? When did you start, just becoming just more aware in general?
Yeah, I know like there's just like folks that are, oh, you're woke, or this sense of consciousness, and I think it how you have to be humble, and I've always been taught to be humble and understanding like your consciousness, and a lot of my teachers taught me, throughout my young adult life, and not so to say like teachers in like the school system, because I did have that. I was like, and that's a privilege, and I'm always well aware of that, because not a lot of kiddos now get that, and I was one of the lucky ones. I like to say that, and but I know that just by me representing and working in the school system is something that at least I can help. But just going back to understanding that, I was junior in high school when I took this curriculum that was through Tucson Unified School District, and it was funny because I have an older sister. She's a year and a half older, and she was in the Rasa Studies program. This is what the program was at the time, and she graduated 2007. I graduated '08, and she took it her junior and senior year, and she was like, oh, I'm taking these classes, they're really cool, but I can't explain them to you. And I'm like, what? And then she's like, I know you're gonna love them, Jennifer. She's like, because you're always trying to make sure that our family, or mom and dad, or nuestros papás, para que no los vean la cara. And then I'm like, what? And I'm like, what? When you're a freshman, what, you're like 14, 15? And I'm like, yeah, like, because we had, now I could say, like, we had experiences, being born and raised here in Arizona, in Tucson. Like, my parents are both from Sonora, and I'm from Sonora. And my dad was one of the lucky ones. Like, when I tell my story, I always said we were one of the lucky ones, in the sense that my dad's grandparents lived in the borderlands here, and he had some cattle. And I think, and in studying history, because I'm a history major, um, I think what happened was that my tata from my dad's side had cattle, so they gave him papeles, they gave him papers, because people who had cattle meant that they had some money, some stability. And then my tias and my dad's the youngest of my tias. My dad never saw his parents. They passed away when he was 4 years old. But my tias raised him, and it was funny. I always like to tell a story, because I'm like, Dad, how did you know you were a U.S. citizen, or how did you get papers or whatever? When I started asking all these crazy questions, and he's like, "But no sé, I don't know. Your tias know." And I'm like, okay. So I went and asked one of my tias, the most vocal one, that's really into the whole family politics. I'm
You
pretty
always
sure
have
you
to
probably
have
got
one
one
of
of those.
those, right?
Yeah. And so I asked her, and she's like, oh, mijita. She's like, we didn't know. We were trying to, because they all lived in Sonora, specifically Nogales. We were trying to cross the border and come shopping here. And I'm like, what do you mean, tia? This is back in the 80s. And she's like, yeah, we like the clothes from over there, from the linea. And right here in the borderlands in Nogales, there's obviously the border, and then there's like a strip of bunch of brand name clothes. stores from here, outlets from the US side. So you just cross the border, get your fit, and then cross back. And that's how you're all, all cute and whatnot. And so my tia's like, yeah, so we went to get our papers, and they told us, why are you filing for a green card? All of you guys are US citizens because your dad is. And they were all taken by it. So they got their citizenship and they stayed in Mexico.
Wow.
And my dad stayed in Mexico till he was probably like legal to work, like 13. He dropped out of elementary and he just wanted to work. And one of my tios, belated, he passed away. He got him a job here. So what my dad used to do is just cross over every day. And he'd work here since he was 13 years old in construction. That's what he does now. And then he'd get my mom's el dinero verde, right? The green money. And then he's all rich in Mexico because he had the green bills. And so he worked for a while like that since he was in his 20s. That's how I got papeles, like that's how it happened, and I think one of the things that I look up the most with my parents, because my mom's from Sonora, but my mom's from Cananea, and that's 3 hours away from this border. And she was born and raised there, and she has a rancho, my tata has a rancho, and we have a ranch, and I always go. That was one of my main things. Like every holiday I go over there. My mom will go visit her grandparents. We're very united. Well, that's one of the main things that I like to talk about is like, you have to understand where your lineage is from, right? You have to understand like what part of you, and you have to kind of investigate through your parents or people that have raised you, because not a lot of people have the same story, right? Not a lot of people can investigate a lot. Not a lot of people have that luxury, and that's the way I started, understanding my lineage. So fast forward, I would always kind of like be that voice for my parents, because my parents, till this day, they've been here all their lives. They don't know English, and they don't care now. They don't. And I think my mom at some point in her life she did, because my mom did get a little bit of like college, like a college degree, like a trade, more of a trade. In Nogales, she was one of like the secretaries for what we call now maquiladoras. And what that is it's like a plant, like a sewing plant. And she was one of the ones there managing the money and the finances. So when she came over here, she said it was really hard to like find a job because everybody wanted her to speak English. And she tried, but then she had us, and it was too hard. And I mean, she's an older woman now, and she still wants to, like she has these aspirations, but she kind of like, was able to get through the system. What I mean by the system is like America, and you have to speak English, right? And I think my mom has had a lot of microaggressions and aggressions, unfortunately, and some bad experiences when we were younger. But when going back, what my sister said is like, you're gonna like these classes because these classes are gonna teach you on how to be vocal, and see who you are and experience who you are. Because I remember being very young and having to talk to white folks and saying, you're not going to treat my mom like that. You're not going to disrespect my mom like that. No, my mom doesn't need to speak English in this country for her to have her rights. And I was very young, like kind of like put in that spot because my older sister is pretty shy. And she didn't have that, I guess, confidence or the ability with words like I do, I guess, to be able to like defend my parents. And so, yeah, like I was excited, man. I was pretty stoked to get into these classes. So my junior year, I took Mexican American Studies for history and African American Lit for English. and I took Mexican American Studies Government. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things that I got from there is Paulo Freire's work on the pedagogy of oppressed folks. And I think that type of college level text in high school really made me understand like the paradigms and um, folks that are oppressing and now oppressed, that the systems of the education and the medical field and all of the systems that, you know, sometimes work against people of color, specifically Black folks, you know, on top of that, and understanding like your privilege. You have a sense of privilege if you're documented, if you're able-bodied, and if you're not Black. 100%. And, you know, and then I knew right after high school that I wanted to be a teacher, specifically for Chicano studies, Rasa studies. And I knew that that type of pipeline, so to say, right? Like if I was able to get on track with that pipeline of understanding like Chicano studies, and someone would have my back, and that it would be attainable, and I would be able to get a college degree. And I think one of the main things was I felt like I couldn't sway, I couldn't venture, I didn't have that in privilege or entitlement to be able to like, oh yeah, fuck it, I'll just try out all these venues of things that I want to be in college and give it a try. It was never like that. It was like, for me, it was like, I gotta do this and I gotta do that and I gotta do this, because if I don't, then I'm not gonna make it. Because if I don't, then I will fail, because that system doesn't want me to succeed.
What do
So
you
when I
mean
got
by that?
into
I'm curious of like what you mean by that. Like if you tried other majors and took a whole bunch of one-on-one classes, why would you have failed?
because I one would probably be because it wasn't my interest. Like I'd probably be like, no, this isn't for me, like nursing or being maybe a lawyer. I didn't have that confidence in me to go to law school. Like I knew that at a very young age, when I was like 20, when I was like 17, 18, I knew it was either a teacher or nothing else because I thought that Mexican American Studies, the department itself, would understand that I was a Rasa study kid, and that I took Rasa studies, and that I was already in that pipeline, and that they would have my back, which they did, because I, you know, now have a master's in education, and not because of me, because of a lot of people that helped me through it. And I don't like to be like, yeah, look at me, and you know, I picked up by my bootstraps and did it all by myself. Like hell no, like that shouldn't fly. Like, cause I was a fucked up kid. Like I was crazy, you know, like, and I'm pretty still a little crazy, but it kept me in line. A lot of women kept me in line, and I always want to pay my respects to those women, because if it wasn't for their teachings, and if it wasn't for their ability to be there and put that emotional support, um, or that emotional labor, it wouldn't have happened. Hands down, it would not have happened. Um, and so, yeah, Rasa Studies really woke us up, because at the time, my senior year is when HB 2281 was in effect. So HB 2281 is the bill that killed Rasa Studies courses, and really moved a lot of the key folks that were operating that department, and basically like told them you don't have a job anymore, and all the Rasa Studies teachers couldn't teach that curriculum anymore. But I was I was the last year, and then I had all the Rasa Studies kids that were now in college were putting in mad fucking work, And then I joined them to help, like, protest. And I was always a bystander. I was always supporting. I was never an organizer at the time because I was still in high school and I was still at Pima. Then I transferred over to the Mexican American Studies department. And then I was able to put in a little bit more work there.
Before you move on, I want to know more about this Rasa Studies. How did it get into the curriculum? How long was it in the curriculum before it was taken away? And when you say that you were in that pipeline, what it's sounding like to me is that it was some way that these folks that were organizing it from the top was trying to create that pipeline to basically play by the system, play by the book, to be able to get more of their people, you know what I mean, whatever that looks like, through that pipeline to be successful and being able to do the work from the inside out as opposed from the outside in. Am I misunderstanding that?
I don't know all the details, but what happened was these group of folks got together. These group of teachers, educators, and college professors, because Julio Camarota, he was at the U of A at the time, and folks from the community, they got together and they made this curriculum that taught you about your Mexican heritage, that taught you about your identity, that taught you about the systems that you can work with or that work against you, and really taught you who you were, right? How you grow up as a Mexicana, Chicana, how you're seen. And they also taught you how and what is offered in your community and how you can help your community out. Like, they taught you the sense of humbleness and the sense of giving back to the community you're from. Because a lot of people come, take from the community, and then leave. And, as a Tucsonan, a native, indigenous to here, that's fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how else to say it. And so a lot of those folks were very woke. They're highly, highly educated. And they got the same curriculum that you have to teach from the state. And then they got it. It was like they got this curriculum and they still taught the curriculum, but they added way more of content that was very specific to the kids that they were teaching to. Because, 95% of TUSD is Mexicanos, Chicanos, brown folks, people of color. Like, the turnaround of the kids that got Rasa Studies to the kids that then went on to college was like crazy in number of kids. It was like a lot, like 100 percentile or something like that of the kiddos, because they gave us confidence. They gave us higher curriculum. Like, we were reading college texts that kids want to read. Like, it wasn't like, here's this book, study the notes, you can get the answers from the back, fill in this sheet, and you're good to go. It wasn't like that. It was like, you need to work with each other. You need to go out into your community and see what your community is experiencing. Hey, look, these are some authors. This is part of your cultura. This is part of other people's culture. This is part of other people's living experiences. And now and then they empowered you. And they told you, you matter, right? You matter. You are going to go on and you can be whatever you want to be. Once they provided all this curriculum, and once they taught us about magical realism, magical consciousness, naive consciousness, and critical consciousness, then you knew in society how people maneuver. Like, my sister is always in this naive consciousness and like magical realism, like Disneyland. Like, she thinks everything's fine, right? And like they teach you to question and ask why. As a critical thinker, as this woke person, your consciousness is alive, and you understand what's happening to Black folks, people of color, all the news, and you understand, especially like now with this person that's in office, and they taught you about the Chicano pipeline, right? Like 2% of like Chicanas, Mexicanas get their PhD, dude. Yeah. And I'm on like the 10 percentile of Mexicanas that get their masters. And those are scholars that we knew through the Rasa Studies. And if we didn't have that, I would have never experienced that until I went to college, if I went to college, and if I knew like the Mexican American Studies department was available. And, all of the beautiful people you come across that are just like you, and all the friendships that you make. I made a lot of friendships, and that's what kept me going. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and the bill was killed, they killed our department.
Wow. Like, yeah, what happened there? Like I said, you said it was there for 6 years.
About more or less.
About 6 years. Why did you decide to take it out?
So what happened was the superintendent at the time was this racist bigot, Tom Horn, and he basically sued the department, or I don't know who sued who, and then they had to take it to trial. But once they took it to trial, this just happened like a year or two ago, they found it unconstitutional, and that the Rasa Studies department shouldn't have been killed. And one of the main things that Tom Horn and the school board at the time, because let me tell you, we made a lot of noise, and the community of Tucson was big when it came to Rasa Studies. And it's a huge community because they saw the impact that it had. Schools protested. I did a walkout at my school. Community members protested. Unidos took over the school board. And chained themselves. It was like a national thing, dude. And like now, because of Tucson, like California is full of Rasa Studies. Other states like have Rasa Studies and that have implemented it in their curriculum in the public school system. And a lot of those folks took from us, and they literally took. And a lot of people made a lot of money. Also, let me tell you, some folks, specifically macho men, love to take credit for it when it was on the backs of women of color that were organizing, some of the ones I mentioned. But, I mean, to be honest, one of the main things Rasa Studies taught you was your indigeneity. And they taught you a lot of indigenous practices, specifically the sun calendar, right? Like what we know as the Aztec calendar, like a lot of society teaches, but it's a lunar and a solar calendar. And what I mean by that, the solar calendar teaches you everything, right? A lot of the teachings from the Aztec calendar were taught and were showed to us. That one of the main things they showed is the four Tezcatlipocas, and there are 4 elements, and the Rasa Studies program taught you about one. Like for example, Cipitotec is like you seeing yourself through a mirror and understanding the smoking mirror and understanding like the way that you change as a person and the development of your critical consciousness. So that wasn't reinstated now, but that was one of the main things that was so unique to that program that they couldn't take. And I think that really fueled us as students, as kiddos. And I'm sure all our cohorts will never forget that.
So now that, experience with the Rasa Studies and everything, and you going through the pipeline and getting your master's and being in the higher percentile, and now being an educator in the, Tucson Unified School District, are you still over at your old high school?
I teach girls basketball there.
Oh, yeah.
But I went back to my middle school.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, I wanted to get back to middle school, and I found
What is it like being an educator? What is it like being, a queer woman of color in that space, and being a masculine queer woman in color of that space? And what are you observing, especially because we know it's 2020. We know that the educational system is being seen a little different right now. And yeah, like how are also the students at the same time? Like how are the students overall, and also like if you've pinpointed some like tomboys in the crowd, and how are they maneuvering through life?
being an educator is one thing, right? Being a woman of color is another. But being like a Chicana, outspoken, indigenous, masculine of center, Chicana, it's just hard, dude. You have all these like convulsion of things, and you assert them every day. And sometimes you assert more than others. I've had to learn to really navigate to protect myself because not a lot of the team around you doesn't have that sense of understanding and operates in that very ignorant, naive consciousness. And so one of the good qualities that I have, I could say, is that I'm an alligator, right? Like Sipakli. So that was the air that was present when I was born, when my mom was giving birth to me in the solar calendar, right? In the Aztec calendar. And so I can have I could go back and forth in my duality, right? And my equilibrium is very set. And so I think I've mastered being able to have conversations with people and meeting them where they're at and not putting too much work in them if they're not going to respect you, right? But at least understand, like I don't hide that I'm gay, but I'm not telling the whole world that I'm gay because I know that it's not safe for me. Even in places that are queer or are queer friendly, it's not safe. Unfortunately, because all of the society that we feed into is changing, yeah, but you're still not safe. You're not safe as a woman, let alone a woman of color that's gay, right? Or that has masculine center tendencies, or not tendencies, but have these learned behaviors, and or you exude this energy that every day you wake up with, and it's really hard to explain. And a lot of people, it just goes through their head. They're like, oh, you're gay and you're butch, or you want to dress like a man, or you want to act like a man. And or what is acting like a man really, what is that? Or what is trying to look like a man? Because I like Nikes and I like to wear a hat, that makes me a man. Cool. Well, or I think when you look at folks in our education, also like the age gap is crazy. I'm pretty young, and a lot of these folks are probably in their 50s, dude, and it's exhausting. Sometimes when I look super masculine and I throw on my fit, and I'm gonna go work out, and they look at you and then they kind of do the double take, but then they're like, they don't want to say nothing, but you don't really give a fuck. That's where I'm at. Um, and I think I know how to maneuver in specific places. I'm fortunate that, where I'm working at now hasn't been an issue, but I could see it being an issue because people have a lot of biases, discrimination, and folks like that I work with that are black go through microaggressions every day. And I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. And then if I'm in a place of privilege and power, I'm gonna make it known that that's not all right, especially for the young kids. I'm always teaching them, no, that's not okay. No, you can't see the world this way because this is why. And maybe you should unlearn these habits, behaviors that you have now so that when you get into high school, it's easier for you. But it's challenging sometimes. I can't say it's not. When I say, well, I need to check in with my partner, or I'm going with my girlfriend, You know, sometimes you have those smirk and stares, or sometimes they outright say awful things. It's never been said to my face in the district. With parents, I'm cautiously aware, especially, you know, I'm serving my community, and I know there's a lot of traditional Mexican women out there, like my mom, conservative, that's a battle that I deal with every day. So I know firsthand, and I think I have the upper hand because I know firsthand what these kiddos are going through because I went through it. I was at the same middle school they're at, you know? So there are some challenges, but I try to work through them.
Would you ever consider a different career?
Nah. I'm telling you, it's like like ever since I was 17 years old, I told myself by 21, 22, I'm going to have a bachelor's. And then when I got by 24, I was going to be this. And then by this time, I was going to be teaching. And I love it. I couldn't think of doing anything else with working with kids, you know, high school kids, maybe college kids in the future. But I'm kind of I'm like my dad in a lot of ways. And my dad, once I like something, if it's good to me, just do it until you. Those are some of the examples that I've taken from my family. One, do it till you become an expert, and then you just do it till you die.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I have other aspirations, you know, but with my career, going, it'll always be education, for sure.
So just to shift really quick, I want us to talk about just your story in terms of being two-spirited. Again, I don't think that's something that our community knows much about. Yeah, we just don't know much about it. I don't know if that's something that is optional, or is it something that's just with Indigenous folks in terms of what that means for that community. Because, you know, people are claiming identities all day, right? People are claiming their sexual preferences and orientations or genders all day. So I'm just curious of you being someone that identifies with that identity and just educating us, being the educator that you are, educating us on what that is.
Yeah, no, it came to me when I was younger. I'm 30 years old, girl. Hit me
You're
like a ton of
30.
bricks. Hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. I still can't believe it. But we'll talk about that later. When I was younger, like in my 20s, when I got into through Rasa Studies and then being in college, I started, when we were doing protest and organizing, I met these folks, and specifically Chucho and Maria, and they have a calpoli, and a calpoli is a group of people, group of family that establish these protocols and understanding your indigeneity, right? And like there's certain protocols to be able to, one, be a part of that family, what the family really expects. But it's like, to me, it was like something so organic and so natural that just happened because I wanted to be around those folks. I wanted to learn more about those folks, and I felt very protected and loved, and seen. And so I started going around with them and running. We would run through our barrios, um, and put medicine down, um, and open with the sun, close with the sun. Uh, we had community staffs and the representation of the women staff, the children staff, and our main staff, which is a representation of like our whole continent. And also like with that staff, some Calpoli members went on a, this run that they put throughout all indigenous continents, and they run through a bunch of continents, and they run from one point to another, and it keeps on changing. But so when I started running with them, I was very consistent with that because it felt good. It felt healthy. It felt like home. Like it was something that was calling me. And uh, from there, I tried a sweat lodge, and in that sweat lodge, there are you're invited as a community member to take care of yourself in that sweat lodge. And being in a sweat lodge is like you're in your mom's belly, and you're in your mother's womb, and you share songs, you share fire, and you share palabra, which is your energy, your flow, and what's on your mind, right? And we ask for good energy and a good spirit within those folks. And there's a women's sweat which is ran by Maria, and it's just main women identified folks um, that go around. And then there's a co-ed one that Chucho run, and his name is Jesus Reese, and those are women and men. And through those teachings, I learned a lot of their songs. And you're in a sweat lodge, and there's volcanic rocks in the middle, and then you pour water over it, and then it does like a steam bath, and you cleanse yourself, and it's pitch dark, so you're super centered, and it's uncomfortable, but you can get claustrophobic in there, like, or you can stop like breathing sometimes. But like those are things that come with sweats, but the energy and the flow, and just they'll take care of you. But it's something like you're not used to, like being in a close proximity with no light, and it's hot, like literally, like it's like a sweat bath. And the first time I sweated, I was with women in Malincina, a women-centered zine group that was in college, that I was fortunate to be a part of during in college. And these women, these are the women that I was telling you about, that had my freaking back, and like they whipped me into shape, especially because I was gay and I had all these macho tendencies. And so I sweated with all those women, and it was a beautiful experience. And at first, it was like I was out of my body the first time I sweated. And then after that, I kept coming back. So within those practices, there's ceremonies. Like we have our New Year ceremony when we light the fire. That's the first fire of the year. And we follow the solar Aztec calendar. So every 13 days, we try to do a sweat lodge. Every 20 days is a different cycle. There are ceremonies where I got my gauges, like I got them pierced through a ceremony that I had to fast. And it's all optional. All these ceremonies you can partake in. You fast for 3 to 4 days. You share prayer. You share songs. You share water. And there's all these ceremonies. So within that family, right, you have your like chosen family. But it's more than that. It's just living and breathing your indigeneity. So Chucho and Dominique, Calpoli members, they talked about two-spirit. And within indigenous tribes, you were called to do things. Like you can drum, the water drum, you can dance, specific traditional dance, you could sing. When you identify as a two-spirit, you're talking about, you're reclaiming your indigenous one, and two, you have a duality. And what I mean by duality, like specific energies can do certain protocols and do certain things. So the way I was taught, like the drum is a masculine energy, and it presents a masculine energy, and folks that are masculine in the center can drum if you have that energy present. Or the tecocoli is a seashell, and that seashell, if you really look at it, at tecocoli, it's like huge seashell. Like in the middle, it looks like a yoni, like you could blow it. Like if you're two spirit, you could carry both energies together. And you had a certain calling to you where you were able to do both. You had these tasks within your ancestral tribes that you could do both with. And you can present that feminine energy also with your masculine energy. That then you can carry things in the tribe that ask for both. And that's the way you can think about two spirit. Different ceremonies call for different energies present. So that's why they gave tasks to two spirit people, specific tasks that embody both.
So can anyone be two spirit?
I think for me, it's like you have to respect and understand before you start calling yourself that. Because you could look up on Google and you can look up two spirit and there's like a label that says you carry both feminine and masculine energies, or you carry both, and that's it. But for you to understand two spirit, you have to, for me, do it and feel it and consciously be a part of something that's calling both feminine and masculine tendencies. So I think if you have the understanding and you have the practice, then in my opinion, yeah.
How would one start that process and practice?
One, it's just like searching your community for folks that are two spirit, or searching your community and your local area on like maybe folks that practice ceremonies or that sweat or that understand the solar calendar, and then asking questions, because at least that's kind of like the direction that was taught to me by Chucho. He told me like the dualities, and then Dominique showed me it because she's two spirit in the Kalpoli that I'm a part of, and then just researching it.
Is it for one particular group of people, or can anybody, any person of color or a white person can start that journey also? Or is it just for indigenous folks?
I think that's a good question, because there are white indigenous folks, that practice their ceremonies and their lineages, and that are maybe biracial, or like, from Canada or Europe. I don't know, that I can't talk for those folks, but I would definitely say, like, if you're gonna understand and like say, like, I'm a Mexicana, Chicana, Indigena, and a masculine of center, present that. You have to, like, you can't just one day just wake up and say that. You have to have the lineage, and you have to learn, and you have to understand your identity to then call yourself that. I didn't just start, like, when I was in high school, I'm two spirit. I had no clue. I didn't even know I was a Chicana till I understood what Chicana meant, and where it comes from, and, why I stand to be a Chicana, and why I'm an Indigena, why I made that phase, and why I consciously practice it. And I'm not the best at it either. I'm still learning, but my commitment to that family will, for me, when I put my seed down, that meant it was a lifelong thing. It's not like, oh, this group fell apart, on to the next. No, this is like till I die. And I'm all right with that. And my kids, if I ever have kids, and that my partner have to understand that. So what I'm saying is that I think you have to do your work as a person, and understand and live through those experiences, and understand like what it is to be in a Kalpoli, or what it is to be in a tribe. And then maybe you could start calling yourself that.
Speaking of doing the work, what work do we have to do, continue doing as masculine center folks?
Dude.
And we're going to end on that. Because you were saying that you had these colleagues, from the Rasa program and stuff that would would call you out on your machismoism and, you know, your macho mannerisms and stuff. How were they calling you out? And again, like, how do we start doing that work?
Oh man, you know, I still embody a lot of macho tendencies. You know, we have to, like, to me, I had to understand that I was groomed as a little boy. I was seen as a little boy in my family, even though my mom will never really say it. But the way that I asserted myself was, I'm a boy and I want to be treated as a boy. And when I was like younger, it was like, no, well, you got to serve me like you serve my dad. Like at dinner, you have to not question me, okay? You have to let me do what I want. You have to let me be me with all these like privileges that men have. Like that's literally what I wanted, because I would see that men got away with a lot of shit. So I'm like, yeah, this is me. And so I had to unlearn that, and I started unlearning that when I was in that Malinsin group, because it was all women of color, and they were fed up about all the men in their groups in that community being problematic, and the rape culture, and calling out these machos. And here I am being a macho in the group. And I had to unlearn. A lot of people had to put me in my place, and a lot of people didn't fuck with me, and they were like, fuck you, get the fuck out. Or they were like, you know, you're being problematic, and they would call me in and just say, hey, you know, my partner at the time would tell me all the time. And so I had to unlearn these toxic masculine tendencies. I still have to this day. I still have them, you know, but I try to be as conscientious as I can. And, you know, I could say, you know, gay women embody that too, femmes, you know, but there's a difference, right? Because masculine center folks, they can be seen as men. And with that comes privilege as a man, even if you're of color. And then if you have these habits and patterns that are toxic, then you just become them. And sometimes I feel like as tomboys, that's what shit, let's be real about it. We want to have that privilege, right? And I, for the longest time, did, because I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be taken serious, and I wanted to have that privilege. And sometimes I walk with that privilege and take that privilege. But I try and be as conscientious as possible. And, you know, I fucked up plenty of times in my youth, and I'm probably going to continue to fuck up. But those women really helped me out in understanding that and changing it. You know, going through counselors, you know, for my mental health, that has been helpful to break down these tendencies. You know, struggling with me and my mother's relationship, because she's very homophobic. Really seeing a lot of these younger tomboys embody that, you know. I think there has to be examples of how you can assert your power, and how you can have that privilege, not be toxic as a macho. You know, my partner calls me a machita. There you go again, being a machita, right? Like, I'm macho, but I'm a machita. She calls me out all the time. And a lot of our problems are, the root is, you know, that misogyny. You have to identify it first. And those folks that choose not to, they're probably not wanting to give up that privilege. It starts with you, and really trying to, and really seeing your circle around you, and really trying to, if those folks are not checking you, then they're establishing that same dependency of toxicity. And when I tell my story, when I first came out to my family, the shit was brutal, traumatic. I got kicked out. Like, my dad called me a fucking marimacha, and that's the man that I look up and I want to be. And he's calling me these things, and my mom's like, no. And I went through like super like mental health crisis, depression, and then on top of that, you're telling me all the shit that I work for to try to be masculine and center and try to be gay, I can't be because it's toxic and it's misogynist, and you have to assert your masculine of center self a different way. It's really hard to break those things down. It's really hard. And a lot of people automatically think because you're dressed as a butch, or they've seen these old examples of old butches that, dude, are embodiment of toxicity, misogyny, and those are our examples. And like, that's what my mom's trying. Like, my mom literally sees me and thinks I'm gonna end up like that, and it's like, no, like, I want better. I will always want better, and I want to be able. And dude, I don't have like the magic potion. Like, we don't. You and I don't. None of the other tomboys. One of the main, I think, themes that I saw, while looking at the videos, they're like, we all have almost the same coming out story. I was really happy that all the other tomboys, like, their moms have come around. My mom hasn't, and then has put a huge strain on my past relationship, is putting a huge strain on my relationship now. And it's like putting in that work of being able to, like, having to navigate that, and not wanting to be problematic and macho about it. Like, how do I go about it, not this fucked up misogynist way? And I'm still learning how to do it. I think I've told my coming out story to young folks, like in high school. My church always has me come back and talk about queerness and how you represent yourself. I have like a whole ass slide on it. It's crazy. Never thought I'd do it, but I just tell my like coming out story, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but these kids break down. I break down with them every time I talk about my coming out story, because it's probably a fucked up one, and it's like, how do we, like, I literally there's like no one in my family or immediate family that's gay, dude. Fucking sucks, right? Wow. But I have to be the first one. And it fucking sucks that you're like, when I came out, like all of my family on both sides were like, we fucking knew it. Like, what are you talking about? And like, my tias are like, like, most of them are supportive. Some don't really give a shit. And my mom's the only one. And one of the main things she tells is like, ¿qué va a pensar la gente? ¿Qué onda? Like, what are people gonna think? And it's like, really, mom? Like, don't put this shit on other people. Like, dude, like, I went in this like depression, in this drinking spell. Like, my mom thought I was a whole ass alcoholic because I was drinking so much. Because I remember one time she called me and I had got a DUI when I was like early, like I was probably 17 years old. And there was this one occasion that I'll never forget. She was like, what's wrong with you? What do you have in your heart that you're drinking so much? And that shit fucking woke me up. And I was like, damn, I gotta tell my mom I'm gay. And the time that I did, it was like she didn't want me in her house, and I had to go. And with that, I didn't talk to her for a whole year. And it was heartbreaking, and if you don't have a support system, and you become homeless because of those reasons. And at the time I was going to college, and I had a fucking badass partner, and these women that were like, we got you. and I'm so thankful for them. And I had a counselor, and dude, it fucking took my counselor, my therapist, to go talk to my mom at her house. And the first time she went, my mom said, "Don't come in my house. Come when my husband's not here." Then she went back again, and she talked to her, dude. It took a counselor to go to my house, and let me tell you, this counselor is amazing, because this is my first counselor ever, and she went above and beyond. And talked to her. And this whole year, I was sober because my mom thought I was an alcoholic. So I not only was kicked out, but then I was sober for a whole year. And I had to like somehow show my parents, like, no, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just gay, And when she came around, she still had restrictions. And she apologized, but she's like, I accept who you are, but don't you ever bring anybody to my house. Okay? And I'm sorry. That was it. And then she tries to put it on other people. And it's like, dude, I'm so over it. Dude, I'm fucking 30. And I'm like, the little boy in me that was groomed as a little boy growing up doesn't want to let her mom down. And it's like, fortunately, and unfortunately, I'm the only one that went to college in my family, in my immediate family. My little sister's going now to college, but I was the first generation. And my mom fucking threw all sorts of parties for me and bragged about me and did all this shit. But she still can't accept that I'm gay. One, if we like share our stories like you're doing, folks that are at a point in their life where they can share and they're not scared, too, and they feel safety, I think it'll change. It'll change the world. It'll change families. It'll change a lot of folks, specifically of color, that have to go through it. And little tomboys like us, it's heartbreaking, dude. It's like, it really sets you back,
Yeah. And I just want to commend you, because you've continued to push through, and I think it's just says a lot about you and your character, the fact that you went through that experience with your family. And it's just this weird image in my head that I see, like, you're trying to move forward, but your mom, is trying to hold you back at the same time. So it's like this pull, and I just want you to know, like, I'm so proud of you that you've gotten this far, like the fact that you're like, it's like you're like my window, and my like window to an eyes and soul into the educational system, because that's truly where like I want to be. I know, but it's like, even like you getting your master's, it's just so inspiring to hear you continuously pushing through, to be able to be a leader in your community. And that's something that I've always admired about you, because I know that it hasn't been easy. And even even simply doing the work, you know what I mean, as a masculine center woman, and having to, understand our toxicness and like our misogynistic bullshit, and like that shit's hard, and it's just,
and dude, and like, to be honest, it's like, that's why we don't have fucking friends, dude. And it's like,
talk to me.
Like, my partner's like has a shit ton of high school friends, and then it's like, well, what the hell happened to all my jockey friends? Like,
where did they go, huh?
Like, we're all fucked up, all jealous of each other, or trying to figure it out, and we have no like network to figure it out. And then you're just like a lonesome, and it's not till I got into college that I made friends, and there are none like me, unfortunately. They're all like lipstick lesbians or straight women of color. And like, I know that you brought it up on the other Tomboi Talks. It's like, we're gonna get your girl, or like, we don't have buddies, because you feel like you're gonna go and it's like, what the fuck? Like, it's already hard enough to maintain a girlfriend, let alone go and fucking steal someone else's. It's like, try and navigate all this shit, and then thinking that it's like, but again, that's our toxicity, that's our misogyny, you know, and like wanting to be in the boy talk, you know, and like what they talk about, and like most of the time is degrading women, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's hard, dude. It's hard. And I mean, I'm still trying to look for friends that are in Tucson that don't leave. And you know, like, it happens.
You know, and that's a part of this project, right? It's you know, if you know any tomboys in Tucson, you know, that to be honest with you, like I said, I'm still hurting from that chapter. You know, I'm still having to heal from that chapter. But, you know, at the end of the day, we talked about this. You know, you're one of the first tomboys that I actually, you know, shared this vision with, and that we are continuously, you know, making the effort into our friendship, and this being a part of it. But, you know, you and I spoke about that, like, I told you that, like, when a Tucson chapter comes up, you know what I mean? I would hope that you would help and spearhead that, you know, because that's what we need. We need those tomboys that are being leaders. It's not easy being a freaking leader, because exactly what you said, where do they all go? You know, after we're all done playing sports in school, right? A lot of us don't make it to college. So it's kind of hard to like reconnect when you've continued your education, you know, and just like, conversation's just a little different. Exactly what you're saying. Like, they're still probably talking about each other and things and stealing each other. To be honest,
it's like I tell my girl all the time, like, how did you develop these long lasting friendships from high school? And I'm like, I need to learn how to make friends. Like, I literally don't know how to keep a damn friend.
I bought a book. I bought a book because of it.
Dude, it's like, it's a lot of work, and I'm like, oh my God, like, and it's like, to me, it's like, I can maintain a friendship, you know, for the longest time, but then it just, I don't know what happens. It's like that's probably one of the main things we should talk about, dude. Like, we should all get together and like do some Zoom stuff, or like just be like, how do you maintain friends? Like, how do lipstick lesbians maintain friends? How do fans do it? Like, do we need their like guidance?
Because that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That layer, that one layer, even with other queer women of color, that one layer of masculinity, more masculine center presenting, is such a thick layer. Just masculinity is such a thick fucking layer that it also affects us, you know, in terms, like, I remember writing something down saying, like, toxic masculinity is so toxic that it doesn't just affect men. You know what I mean? So it's like anyone who embodies masculine of centeredness. And so just that one layer is what's making it hard for us to connect, because of the ideas of masculinity. And I think what's been really difficult is that this is something I heard a long time ago, and it's not true for everybody, but in a very generalized way, is that men do things together and women talk about things together. And so I think, again, us having that duality of energies, it's like we kind of like, we want to talk, but we also want to do things, and like, I don't know, it's just having to find that balance, you know what I mean, between doing stuff and talking about stuff at the same time, you know. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out.
You know, I've never really thought about it like that, but like, going with my boys to watch a sports game, dude, no one.
No.
And it's like, I can't even maintain a male relationship, because when I was younger, and then ended up being like, I'm cool with you, but then it's like they hit on me, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have time for you, you know, like,
right.
And I'm like, I'm like my dad, literally. I was like, my dad. Yeah. That's who I do stuff with. If I'm gonna do stuff, you know, and it's like, or like my partner's brothers, but you know, it sucks, dude. I know I'm not the only one. Right. I know I'm not the only one. And we gotta change that.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. That's what you're here for. That's why you and I actually have met each other in person. But
you have like a variety, because like your other Tom stories, like talking about top surgery, right? like, and all that jazz. Like, for me, I love my boobs. I love them. I love the way they feel. I love everything that comes with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they don't make, like, they hurt when I run, but you know what I mean? Like, and like, that's a key thing to say, because maybe some tomboys or like some people think, oh man, to be masculine and center, you don't have to have this, or you have to go through these transitions. And it's like, no. And you can have short hair and long hair and however the heck you want, but it's what your energy represents. It's like what your habits are, what your tendencies are. And a lot of us tend to wear hats, right? A lot of us tend to like play with our fits and what we like and what we don't like, right? And he's just putting things out there for like the young kiddos. It's like,
I can't wait until, and I think it's, it won't happen for like at least 5 years, but I can't wait until we start having, young tomboys on the show and just being able to actually interact with them and have those conversations, because it's just going to be so transformative, like for them to like, can you just imagine, like, this is the image I go to sleep with at night. I have this image in my head of like just at us at a conference, and it's just like a room full of like to the nines, like tomboys, just like suited and booted, just like so good and so like, oh my God, so like sure of themselves and so confident, but so like loving and caring.
Geeking
and
over,
like,
geeking over sneakers and colognes and eyebrows. Like I told you, my eyebrows had to be like a certain way, and yeah, it's like we exist, and we're here.
And I think that's like a big part of it. It doesn't look one way. It is an energy, it is a spirit, and it's something that is hard to capture, but it when you see it, it when you feel it, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, dude, you at IBTs, I'm like,
okay, wait.
Chill.
I'm just gonna tell y'all this real quick. I have to meet y'all where you're at. That's my strategy. You know what I mean? For me, I choose to be at coffee shops all day. It's just, I love that. But, tomboys are at the club. Tomboys are at Pride. Tomboys are out in the street. I'm out in the street sometimes, so I kind of just have to be ready for any, I wouldn't, and that's the thing, like, I think that's the hard part is just like, I can't say that tomboys that are being positive leaders in the community, they like to have fun too. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't just say like, oh, the tomboys at the clubs are just like knuckleheads. I can't say that. You know what I mean? So I just kind of, my strategy was like, I just have to meet y'all where you're at, because I know that I'm not there. Usually I'm at a coffee shop, but if I'm at the street, I have 5 cards with me, I'm gonna give it to somebody, and I think that's the thing that I've been learning is that I'm more susceptible to rejection. I really don't care for it. Like if a tomboy doesn't want to talk to me, that's fine. If you don't want to like be interviewed, that's fine. If you think I'm, if I hit you up in the DMs and you don't respond back, that's fine. If we even set up a call and it doesn't follow through, I'm like, that's fine, but I think a lot of times for some people, like so many levels of rejection, they're going to be like, I'm not going to do this anymore. But like, I'm so immune to it now. So here's my card.
Yeah.
Check out the website. I'm going to hit you up in the DM. Check out the website. Like, you got to have a thick skin,
That's dope. That's dope. And that's one thing I love about you and the work you're doing is like, it takes someone like you with your skills, to be able to like do all this work, and you're not getting paid. You're not like, this isn't like a job. Like, you didn't apply for this. It's like, you got it. And I think that's why I'm like, nah, like we gotta help you, like this needs to be done. I think, especially because I'm in the field that I'm in, and it's just better for my mental health. Literally, because you know how many Tamils have committed suicide this year? We don't know. You know how many brown, black kids, people of color are going through it, and if this can save them, why not? Why not have a panel of tomboys looking all different, being able to just talk it out, and
that
be
makes
able
me
to
happy.
Yeah, like that. It's gonna happen, dude. It's gonna happen, and if anybody, you're the one to do it. Feel me?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a long time. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's what I tell people is like I was looking for something and it didn't exist yet. You know what I mean? So I was like, shit, I just have to do it myself because I'm not
Yeah, dude. I
finding
still
it.
remember you're like, well, how do you identify yourself? And you just like, you're like, just tell me. And then I was like breaking it down, and then you were like, what masculine is center, and you wrote that down, and then you're like piecing things together, and I'm like, well, what's up with you, dude? You're not almost all the same. Like you're like, oh, I'm Filipino, and I'm this, and I'm that, and you were in a sorority and all this stuff, and I was all, wow, because then you have all these like inherent things you think about when it's like, isn't that place for you really, or like just stuff like that. So everybody's story is a little different, and everybody's story is very similar. So I think like maybe with all these videos, they're like, oh, um, I am masculine in the center because it's like this, or I'm gonna go read this book that tells you what it, what it is, and so forth.
I love it. Exactly. Exactly. Um, I'm gonna stop recording. We've been recording. So
Yeah.
you see how it takes, you're like, oh, they're an hour long. I'm like, yo, like it turns into an hour because when was the last time a tomboy had the opportunity to share their story? You know what I mean? Like
Dude, never.
there's so much to say. I'm like, I'm not gonna stop you. I'm gonna be like, go ahead, say anything because it's gonna speak true to somebody. And that's the thing. Like that's the thing I realized. Like I can only share my story so much until un- until I need to go to other people to share their story. You know what I mean? Like they're not only going to connect with me, they might be connecting with you. They might be connecting with Lisa. They may be connecting with Dee. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and being able to give them options. And I think that's what's always been at the forefront of my mind is options, even when it comes to the educational system or curriculum. I hated thinking of the idea that I only had a certain curriculum to teach off of. You know what I mean? Like options is like so important to me. You know what I mean? And I think being able to recognize the privilege that we are living in a society right now where we have options because our parents didn't have options, our ancestors didn't have options, our grandparents didn't have options. So it's just like, that's why I'm like, I have to take every opportunity I can because it's such a privilege to be human today. You know what I mean? It's like, don't get me wrong, shit's still fucking tough and hard out there, but there's still no better time to be human than today. And I was like, I'm going to take advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take advantage of 2020. So y'all tomboy out there and you sitting at home, you want to share your story?
Yes, come through. Come through.
And we'll get your story out there.
Hey, dude, if you ever need someone to carry a camera, in the future, you got this tomboy to do it.
Oh, yeah?
For real.
Hey y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed that video. Again, Jay, thanks for being on the show and teaching us more about what it means to be two-spirit. I know it's something that I had no idea about, but now I know that there is a process before identifying that way. So if you all have any questions, I would say reach out to Jay. I know that they're more than welcome to answer any of those questions. If not, do your research on your own. I know that Google can be very overwhelming, but I think because it's something that isn't talked about so often that there's tons of resources out there to figure out if that's something that you identify with. But I think one thing that I want us to remember is that when it comes to being a tomboy, again, it's not necessarily saying that this is just the only identity for us, but that we live on the spectrum of identities. The only reason why this platform is called Tomboy International is because that was the one thing that I remember hearing, and I think a lot of us heard when we were younger that made us different from the rest of the girls. So thinking about the future of this organization and thinking about our younger selves, how can we think of a name that most of us will be able to be like, I've been called that before. So regardless if you identify as a tomboy, if you identify as two-spirit, if you identify as queer or lesbian or butch or trans or anything like that, all of that is within the encompassing the identity of Tomboy and Tomboy International. So however you feel, however you identify, if you have that masculine energy that is just undeniable, know that you belong here. As we come together as a collective and as a group, and being able to have those important conversations and being able to empower ourselves, we're going to be able to start bringing people to the table so we can start having more important conversations so we can really make change within our community. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you for being a part of this journey and part of this process. As new and different as it is, it's also something that I'm very excited about and really proud that we're going to be doing together in the future.